Imagine a bank manager one day and an outlaw bikie the next. That's Joshua Lucey. He went from managing finances to managing drug deals, shootouts, and more drama than a crime thriller. From being linked to the notorious Rebels and Comanchero gangs to facing serious charges, Lucey's life has been anything but ordinary. Shootings, police raids, and a string of legal battles. The guy's been through it all. But is he really the mastermind the police say he is? Or is there more to the story? You won't believe what's been happening behind the headlines. Joshua John Lucey didn't start out as a notorious bikie. In fact, his story begins pretty differently. He was once a bank manager. Yes, you read that right. He spent his days in an office dealing with numbers, accounts, and paperwork. It's the kind of life most people would think is pretty solid. Nothing that screams danger or high drama, right? Well, that was all before he swapped his suit for a leather jacket and jumped headfirst into the world of outlaw motorcycle gangs. Lucey's transformation didn't happen overnight. It's not like he woke up one day and decided he'd join the Rebels Motorcycle Club, one of Australia's biggest and most feared bikie gangs. But somewhere along the line, he made a decision that would change his life forever. The Rebels were a natural fit for someone looking for excitement. They're known for their violent rivalries with other gangs like the Comanchero and the Bandidos. But what really pulled Lucey in? It wasn't just the tattoos or the roaring engines. It was the power, the camaraderie, and the sense of belonging that comes with being part of something bigger. The thrill of living on the edge. It's hard to ignore when you're surrounded by a gang that lives by a whole different set of rules. Before long, Lucey was rubbing shoulders with some of the most notorious bickies in the country. No more office cubicles for him. He was knee-deep in criminal activity, right from the start. But how exactly did he go from a regular guy working 9 to 5 to being caught up in the chaos of gang wars and high-stakes drama? It wasn't an immediate shift. At first, he was more of a low-key player, someone flying under the radar. But if there's one thing we know about the world of outlaw gangs, it's that staying low-key doesn't last forever. Eventually, the people around you, the real players, will drag you into the bigger picture. And that's exactly what happened to Lucey. In 2019, his life hit a major turning point when he found himself at the center of a violent shooting at the Logan Hyperdome shopping center. You might be thinking, what was he doing there? Well, it's not exactly what you might expect. Lucey wasn't just a bystander. He was allegedly involved in a gangland ambush. A rival gang member was shot in the leg. Not your average shopping mall incident. The whole thing went down quickly. In the blink of an eye, the police were on the scene and Lucey was a name on their radar. And this wasn't just a small incident either. The shooting was part of an ongoing bikie feud. The Rebels and Comancheros were at each other's throats, with tensions boiling over into violence. For Lucey, it was a harsh reminder that the world of outlaw gangs doesn't have any room for second thoughts. Get involved, and you're in deep. No backing out. Now, Lucey had some serious explaining to do. It wasn't just a matter of staying under the radar anymore. The incident raised questions about his loyalty, his connections, and his role in this whole world. But even with everything blowing up around him, Lucey managed to keep his cool. Instead of going down the expected path of a full-blown criminal investigation, Lucey managed to get bail. And not just any bail. He was placed under strict conditions, a $100,000 surety, a curfew, and a ban on associating with certain individuals. But here's the kicker. Even though the shooting was a huge deal, Lucey denied any involvement. He claimed he wasn't part of it, and the case took a while to play out. Over time, it became clear that there wasn't enough solid evidence to pin the shooting on him. So, in June 2021, after an extended legal battle, Lucey was acquitted of all charges related to the incident. It was a big win for him. But it wasn't the end of his troubles. The question now was, If he wasn't directly involved in the shooting, what was his real role in this violent bikie underworld? Was he a pawn in a much bigger game, or was there more to Joshua Lucey than met the eye? Lucey's acquittal in 2021 might have seemed like a victory, but it wasn't a clean slate. While the courtroom had cleared his name on the shooting charges, he wasn't off the radar. Far from it. If anything, the spotlight on him just intensified. This wasn't some Hollywood redemption story where everything turns around and life gets peaceful again. Lucey's next chapter was about to take a much darker turn. By early 2025, Lucey found himself caught up in a drug trafficking ring so massive that it had police on high alert. This wasn't just some street-level operation. We're talking large quantities of methamphetamine, along with other illegal substances flowing through southeast Queensland. The same Lucey, who had been acquitted just a few years earlier, was now being targeted as part of a sophisticated syndicate linked to some of the most dangerous bikie gangs in the region. How did he go from being a free man after a major trial to suddenly being accused of running a drug empire? That's the question everyone was asking when the police busted him as part of a huge sting operation dubbed Task Force Maxima. You'd think someone who had just walked free from a high-profile trial would be careful. But the world of bikie gangs doesn't leave much room for caution. Instead of keeping his head down, Lucey's name kept popping up in connection with a series of encrypted messages and intercepted communications hinting at a large-scale drug operation. This was no ordinary crime syndicate. We're talking millions of dollars worth of drugs being trafficked across Queensland. As the police began to connect the dots, it became clear that Lucey wasn't just hanging around with the wrong crowd anymore. He was deeply embedded in the operation. Whether he was running it or just playing a part, the evidence started pointing towards him as a key player in the whole thing. When the task force raided multiple locations, they uncovered a stash of illegal substances, weapons, and a network of encrypted communications that suggested a well-organized syndicate. Lucey's role? It wasn't entirely clear, but authorities were convinced he had more than a passing involvement. This was no longer just about turf wars or street-level violence. We were talking about big money, bigger risks, and a whole new kind of danger that stretched across the state. Even with all the evidence stacking up, Lucey didn't fold. He denied any involvement in the trafficking ring, and this time he faced an even tougher set of charges. But what was his story? Was he truly an innocent bystander who had accidentally gotten mixed up with some of the worst criminals in Australia? Or was he the mastermind pulling the strings from behind the scenes? It didn't help that he was heavily connected with the Comanchero gang, another notorious name in Australia's criminal underworld. The Comancheros had been involved in everything from drugs to violent clashes with rival bikie gangs, so Lucey's association with them only raised more questions. The police didn't hold back. They used every tool at their disposal, from phone taps to surveillance, to try and gather more evidence. Encrypted communications were intercepted, showing coded messages that seemed to confirm Lucey's involvement in high-level drug trafficking. But there was a catch. The evidence wasn't exactly bulletproof. The prosecution tried to make a case based on the encrypted messages, but circumstantial evidence isn't always enough to lock someone down for good. Lucey's legal team was quick to argue that the connections were flimsy, that the messages were open to interpretation, and that there wasn't direct proof tying him to the drugs themselves. They painted him as just another person caught in a much bigger mess. As a result, Lucey was granted bail, just like before, despite the serious charges. The court imposed strict conditions on him, like electronic monitoring, travel restrictions, and a curfew. But even though he was under strict surveillance, the shadow of the bikie world still loomed over him. Was this just another chapter in his long-running saga, or was this the moment things were finally going to catch up with him? What's clear is this: Joshua Lucey wasn't living the life of a guy just trying to stay out of trouble. He was playing a dangerous game, whether he admitted it or not, and the stakes were about to get even higher. The years following his arrest for the alleged drug trafficking operation were a blur of courtroom drama, legal arguments, and constant media attention. Joshua Lucey wasn't just dealing with a handful of charges. He was caught in a whirlwind of ongoing investigations, mounting pressure from the police, and a legal fight that seemed to have no end in sight. While Lucey had beaten the odds before, walking away from the 2019 shooting charges with an acquittal, this time the stakes were much higher. The evidence against him was more substantial. Drug syndicates don't exactly get disbanded overnight. These operations are like machine gears with everyone playing a part, and once you're caught up in it, getting out isn't easy. Even the fact that there was some gray area in the evidence couldn't completely clear his name. As the case dragged on, the tension around Lucey grew. The police were relentless. They didn't want another slip-up like the Logan Hyperdome shooting, where their evidence hadn't been solid enough to secure a conviction. This time, they were determined. They even put Lucey under constant surveillance, hoping to catch him in a slip-up, a conversation, or an action that would tie him definitively to the operation. But the thing is, Lucey didn't break. He wasn't making mistakes. He had learned how to handle the heat from previous run-ins with the law, and this time he was more cautious, more calculated. His legal team was doing their part too, fighting tooth and nail to poke holes in the police case. Despite the charges, Lucey was granted bail again, though under some of the strictest conditions possible. No leaving town without permission. No hanging out with people who had criminal records. And, of course, constant monitoring. This wasn't freedom. It was a prison sentence without bars. His every move was tracked, making him feel like he was walking a tightrope. But as the months passed, the question remained. Would Lucey be able to fight this one off like he did before? Or was this going to be the moment everything caught up with him? In the meantime, his connections with the Comancheros continued to raise suspicion. The gang, infamous for their involvement in everything from drugs to violence, was always lurking in the background of the investigation. And though Lucey continued to deny any major involvement in the syndicate, the relationship between him and the Comancheros couldn't be ignored. The more the police dug, the more it seemed like he was a player in a game that had much bigger implications than just a single operation. As the case continued to play out, Lucey's position became more precarious. He wasn't just fighting a criminal case, he was fighting the weight of his past, his history with the bikie world, his criminal connections, and the endless assumptions about his role in the broader bikie war that was raging across Queensland. The longer the case went on, the more it seemed like the media circus around his name was overshadowing the actual legal issues. Everyone had an opinion on Lucey. Some saw him as a victim of circumstance, someone who had gotten caught up in a dangerous world. Others saw him as a cold, calculating figure pulling the strings from the shadows. But no matter how people saw him, one thing was clear. Lucey was no stranger to the law, and the law was no stranger to him. It didn't matter how many bail hearings, trials, or investigations came his way. For someone in his position, the spotlight never went away. And with every twist in his legal saga, the question kept growing. Was he really guilty, or was this all just an unfortunate series of events? Through all the courtroom battles and relentless police efforts, Lucey was beginning to feel the pressure. No matter how strong your case, no matter how solid your defense, it's hard to escape the feeling that the law has already decided your fate. Would this case be the one that pushed him over the edge, or would Lucey find a way to slip through the cracks once again? As we've seen, there's always been an uncertain balance in Lucey's life. He's faced close calls, come out on top, and even managed to stay one step ahead. But how much longer could he keep up the act? It's only a matter of time before everything falls into place, for better or for worse. And for Joshua John Lucey, the clock was ticking. As the legal drama continued to unfold, Joshua Lucey found himself in the middle of a life he could no longer ignore. Whether he was truly the mastermind behind the drug trafficking operation or just another player caught in the gears of the bikie world, the consequences were impossible to escape. With every trial, every appearance in court, Lucey's name seemed to grow more synonymous with Australia's most notorious bikie syndicates. The longer he fought the charges, the more it became clear. He wasn't just battling the law, he was battling his own choices. Every connection, every decision seemed to be part of the larger picture of a life he could no longer pretend wasn't his. But could he ever escape this world? Was it possible for someone so deeply involved in the underworld to come out unscathed? Or was his fate sealed the moment he stepped into the life of a bikie? In the background, the Comancheros were still a looming presence. Their influence over Lucey was undeniable, but the question remained, how much of this world was he willing to leave behind? The legal battles may have seemed like they were coming to an end, but there was still a bigger question hanging over everything. What happens after the final verdict? For many people, the idea of redemption seems impossible when you're tied up in a world that doesn't leave room for second chances. The bikie life, with its dangers and betrayals, offers no easy way out. The story of Joshua Lucey isn't just about one man's descent into crime. It's about the pull of loyalty, power, and a dangerous life that many are born into or get swept up in. After everything, the shootouts, the raids, the courtroom battles, Lucey's future still hung in the balance. Could he truly rebuild his life? Or was he destined to be trapped in the cycle of violence and crime that so many bickies never escape from? The truth is, even if he were cleared of every charge, there would always be the question of his role in the bikie world, the influence of the gangs around him, and whether he could ever step away from it all. Some people manage to walk away from that life. For others, it's like trying to escape quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. By the time the dust settled, Joshua Lucey's story had become a symbol of the perils of the outlaw life. For someone like him, there's no going back to a quiet life of banking or a normal 9-to-5 job. Whether he liked it or not, his name was now tied to a world of violence, drugs, and deceit. As the legal process slowly wound its way to a conclusion, one thing was clear. The story of Joshua Lucey is far from over. His life is a reminder of how a single choice can lead someone down a path they never intended. From a bank manager to a bikie, Lucey's rise and fall shows how quickly things can spiral when you get caught up in a world where loyalty is tested by violence, and freedom comes at a much higher price than most people are willing to pay. And maybe, just maybe, the most chilling thing about Lucey's story isn't the crimes, the gangs, or even the shootouts. It's the simple truth that sometimes, once you're in that world, there is no way out. For now, Joshua Lucey waits. His fate, his future, and his freedom are still hanging in the balance. The end of the story hasn't come yet, and maybe it never will.